Good morning. I would like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we are gathered and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to acknowledge any sorry business that may be happening in our community at this point in time. I would like to advise attendees in this room that this meeting is being webcast and audio recorded. We'll go on to attendances and leave of absences. I have a leave of absence for Councillor Russell and a leave of absence for Councillor Bannon. Can I have a mover for those? Yep. Councillor Raven, seconded by Councillor Murphy. Can I have a show of hands? Yes, Councillor Lane.
I think there might have been an oversight. We had Councillor Wilcox having... she's online? Okay. Sorry, I just didn't want her to not be included in that, that's all.
Okay, so can I have a show of hands in support? Has that been carried unanimously? Yes, it has. Okay, we also have Councillor Wilcox who's teaming in via online. We're setting that up for her now.
I'm here, hello.
Okay, all right. Okay, confirmation of previous committee meeting minutes. There is now a motion displayed on the screen to confirm the previous minutes. I'd like to move that the minutes are... Okay, yeah, I'll have a mover with Councillor Murphy and a seconder. Councillor Stamp. Okay, I'd like to move that the minutes of the City Lifestyle Committee... show of hands in support. That has been carried unanimously. I'd like to move that the minutes of the City Lifestyle Committee meeting held on the 10th of July 2024 be confirmed. That has been carried. Declarations of conflict of interest. I now refer to the declaration of conflicts of interest. Do any councillors present wish to declare a conflict of interest for today? There being none, I will now refer to the reports on today's agenda. And we'll begin with item 6.1. Community Facility Design Guidelines. This is a public report and the presenter will be the Sports and Community Infrastructure Manager, Mr. Ben O'Brien. Would you like to...
Did you see another one of these with lots of tags and flags in it?
Yes, Councillor Wilcox, we did.
Councillor Wilcox, you might like to mute.
It's off, sorry.
Okay, so before the meeting, we're going to table a presentation. Is that correct? The meetings teams has said that we can do it afterwards, so we'll do this after the presentation. So, Mr. Ben O'Brien, would you like to speak to your report? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, councillors. I just wanted to begin by thanking you for your time in considering this report and the comprehensive guidelines that are attached. I appreciate it's not a light document. I just wanted to pass on my gratitude for that. The PowerPoint presentation before you, I'm hoping will just give a quick presentation this morning to explore the background of where these guidelines have originated from, to further explore what the guidelines are and how they fit within the infrastructure planning framework and our infrastructure delivery models. In 2019, the Community Infrastructure Strategy was endorsed, and as part of that Community Infrastructure Strategy, there was an action item under Priority Area 1, action item 1.5 there, that called for the development of a Community Infrastructure Design Guideline to ensure all new facilities are sustainable and achieve high quality design outcomes to meet the diverse needs of the community. What are the guidelines? And it's a great question we've had over the past few days. The guidelines are intended to inform the suitable spaces to be incorporated into each facility to service the community for the life of the asset and to ensure equitable facilities are provided for across the city for the generations of community to come. The guidelines will accelerate the functional brief development in the planning phase by giving us a starting template rather than starting from scratch each time over. And that helps us quickly accelerate to the point where we can engage with our stakeholders on further inclusions, exclusions and exceptions that'll be site-specific and catchment-specific. The guidelines do not seek to lock council into a prescriptive design standard, look or feel. Noelle actually shared with me a comment yesterday which I thought was outstanding, that sometimes over-prescription can hinder innovation, and within these guidelines we're absolutely not seeking to hinder innovation. As far as strategic fit goes within our planning framework, you'll all be familiar with our Logan planning scheme that sets out Logan City Council's intention for future development in our planning scheme area over the next 20 years, which is the City of Logan excluding the priority development areas. Under the planning scheme, we then have the Local Government Infrastructure Plan, which integrates infrastructure planning with the land use planning identified in the planning scheme. The LGIP covers off on the priority infrastructure area of the city. The Community Infrastructure Strategy, which we touched on earlier, outlines Logan City Council's long-term direction for community infrastructure provision across the city for the next 20 years. And this is not constrained to the PIA or the PDA, it's inclusive of the entire city boundary. And the proposal with the Community Facility Design Guidelines is to inform the form and function of these spaces across our future planning and design projects. It is not intended to replace any standards or legislation. And that strategic fit more looks at the macro level, and I thought I'd take a moment of your time to then explore what this looks like at a day-to-day project delivery at a micro level. So we have our population projections across how the city's going to develop and where that will develop over the next 20 years, and we have our desired standards of service. That sit in our planning scheme, or our DSS as an acronym, or our level of service. Coming to you shortly in the coming months, Council will be our integrated network plan. That network plan takes those population projections and the DSS and identifies the infrastructure needs, so the what, the where and the when facilities are needed over the coming 20 years across the city. The infrastructure need then will identify prioritised projects, and where these community facility design guidelines come in is they inform then the form and function of that identified project. We also have on the right there on the screen the funding sources that will then be determined how these projects will be delivered and to what capacity. So we've got those recurrent capital works programs. We've got the schedule of works within LGIP for land and or embellishments depending on the network. We have grant funding opportunities. That capital works programming informs the long-term financial forecast. And it reciprocates in regards to the long-term financial forecast will also inform the capacity of our funding sources and the time frame or delivery of our identified projects, and it will also inform the DSS in a bit of a cyclical nature periodically. Once that planning component, that's all the planning component at the front end, and often in facility spaces, that's what we're working on 3 to 4 years in advance of anything actually being constructed. We then have the project design phase, which includes considerations around the urban design framework, consultation with councillors, council and stakeholders, and that's where our National Construction Code and material selections come in to inform that and develop concepts and designs. After that stage, and the last stage is construction procurement, where we're considering the tendering process, value management opportunities, and the delivery methodology. I appreciate there's a lot more to it than that, but that's a quick attempt on my behalf to try and explain the macro and the micro and how this fits in to the planning process and the overall identification of infrastructure need and that delivery opportunity. The intention with these guidelines, we've identified sort of 5 general areas of benefits. Familiarity and consistency. So this is geared towards providing familiarity with with what we're seeking to have out of our facilities at a form and function level for external providers, consultants, contractors, and hopefully over time, over long term, they can start to frame up their services to suit what we're seeking to deliver here in Logan over the long term. We have shared understanding, so community groups can get an understanding of what's on offer, presents opportunities for them to be involved in making Logan a better place, developing a common vocabulary, and demonstrate spaces can have multiple uses. We're hoping this will promote the city, be a leader in community facility spaces, communicating our aspiration opportunities, demonstrating to our residents of Logan our pride in developing quality infrastructure for the community, and this being a guide for current and future custodians of Logan to provide equitable infrastructure across the city for future generations of our community. From an efficiency perspective, this will accelerate our planning and functional brief phase through establishment of a template with which to then consider inclusions, exclusions and exceptions, which I touched on earlier, and will lessen the need for consultants to reinvent the wheel on each project as we use a variety of different consultants. And lastly, from a quality perspective, universal design, accessibility, environmental sustainability, best practice considerations, proven principles and methodologies which maintain a high level of quality and reliability for the life of the asset. Typically, these community facility assets will be 50-plus year assets. And lastly, evidence. So some of the background into what went into this work. The development of these guidelines include an extensive background research paper that investigated common considerations for all facilities, site specificity, environmental and financial sustainability, accessibility and universal design, via an accredited access consultant, management and operations and crime prevention. The diagrams within the guideline that you'll have seen, and this document has been informed by other exemplars from suitable or similar like regions to ours. So they've looked at in this consideration the Cairns Performing Arts, Orange Regional Museum, South Pine Indoor Sports, Highfields Fitness and Aquatic Centre, and up on the screen there, the Pimpamar Sports and Aquatic, Tweed Art Gallery, Capalaba Library, the Glass House, Port Macquarie, and many others. So we've gone far and wide to understand what similar facilities look like, our aspirations, and to try and bring that in together for what we've proposed here to inform the future form and function of our facilities. And for that, thank you for your time and just taking on that presentation, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. We have a question from Councillor Bradley.
Thank you. Through the chair, my questions relate to accessibility, and you referred to the Pimpamar facility, which actually has pool hoists and aquatic wheelchairs. There's also references in other places with lower counters at the foyer for accessibility and accessible storage lockers, etc. Is it possible to include those sort of examples?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Bradley. Just to understand further, are you looking for those examples to be included in this type of a spatial guideline, or are you looking for more inclusion in, as typically some of those things would be identified through the develop design stage or the project design stages?
Yeah, probably the latter.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Typically, depending on the classification of the facility, yes, we'll aspire to have all of our facilities accessible. The level of accessibility, so higher orders of facilities, the items that you just touched on, would be somewhat dependent on whether it's a metro level facility servicing the citywide function, yep, or a district level facility, but absolutely, and informed by our access and inclusion plan. Yeah,
the reason I'm asking these questions, because I used to represent the pool in Underwood, and I'd forever be asked about accessibility for those who are in wheelchairs, or and it wasn't really a factor back then when it was built.
Through the chair, Councillor Bradley, we are with the Beenleigh Aquatic Centre. We have definitely included ramps, and we've included this in, and with the lowered counters, we've included that across the buzz at Yarrabilba, also at the Wilbur Street Youth Centre, and we are designing that into all of our new spaces as well. So each of the spaces means that all of the community, regardless of their abilities or their walks of life, can engage. So these things are being rolled out now, but the guidelines will help absolutely start that discussion from day one.
Thank you. Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much, and thanks for, I sent you a couple of questions before committee, Ben, so thanks for responding to them. I will say my concern is that a set of guidelines is great, particularly if someone wants to cherry pick, say, a project that's coming up and say, we've got a stock set of plans for that area. That's a great thing. I can put that forward without having to plan too hard on it. The thing that concerns me, though, is a good example of it is the senior centre just next door to council. Massive hall, 10-metre high, open roof concept, big stage, office space, lots of toilets, an annex that another group has, meeting rooms. If that went down, I would be stuck with a smaller building under the concept designs. So I would actually get less because we're going for a stock standard fit out or a stock standard design on certain types of buildings, and I just can't support that.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. I do appreciate the couple of questions before committee. This is not intended to be a stock standard design, so it's to inform the form and function, and we have within the guidelines the essential spaces and functional areas, and within that we have also non-essential, so optional extras. Typically with assets, we would have try and replace like for like for what they are existing assets as well. Also the intention for them to be a guideline and not a prescriptive standard or a prescriptive design is that a lot of our sites will be, a lot of our buildings will be highly dependent on the surrounding environment, the topography on the site, the availability of space on the site and what that's servicing. So again, it's intended to influence design. It's not intended to say one's going to be smaller or larger than the other.
And I understand that, but my point is that I've got a big building and I wouldn't get a big building to replace it. And I asked about prices of buildings, and for council's preferred design or preferred whatever wording you use, it's significant. It's significant. It's a lot more than the private sector, and it's significant. So I'm struggling with this one. I'm really sorry. I know that you've put so much work into it, and I appreciate that, but I'm really struggling with probably what I would see as we come to committee and we hear something's coming up and it's put up to us that these are the design standards that council approved in such and such, which was before we were here, and so we went, all right, we have to adhere to those. I just don't want us to fall into that trap in the future, that's all. I think having unique spaces in unique areas is a good thing. Having a stock standard thing or a minimum set of standard designs means that we tend to fall into those standard designs as a fallback or as a what's the LD version of what we want. Yeah.
I appreciate that. I think, again, the intention of the guidelines, if it informs form and function, it doesn't inform look, feel. So we've got the urban design framework for that. So, and again, it has the flexibility to provide different spaces for different areas and how that caters the management operations of the services into the future. You 100% agree with your point. Equally, though, I think, and I touched on before, as current and future custodians for how the city develops, certainly want some degree of equity in facilities across the city, so we don't end up with the haves and the have-nots across the city as well.
First in, best dress, I say.
Mayor Raven.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you, and apologies, Councillor Lane, for interrupting you. I was just praising you for asking questions before committee. I love to see that. Ben, thanks for answering the questions I sent through. I've still got concerns. So I understand that these aren't standard designs. I get that this has nothing to do with design. It essentially just sits there as a placemaker that says this is roughly how much land and how much GFA you're going to need for each different type of community use, right? Which I appreciate, because I would like this council over the next 4 years to start looking 50 years into the future and understanding how much land we're going to need to acquire to completely finish the city and embellish it appropriately with great community and sports assets. And to do that, we need to have something like this that gives us a rough idea. My concern, though, is that it still feels prescriptive and will hinder innovation. So the best example I can give you is Marsden Park, which is a 8-year fight that has not finished, and Councillor Jackson can pick it up and run with it from here. So when I first came and said, hey, I want to build a small community facility to replace the existing one. It's a 100 square metre building. That doesn't exist in this. The minimum GFA is 400 square metre for a general community space. That's as small as it gets. I got blocked by the director at the time saying that's not appropriate, we don't want it. With all due respect to directors, you don't live in the community, you don't know what we know. The community definitely wanted that and wanted it about 4 years ago. None of the current directors. And then I was blocked by the manager at the time. I was blocked by the PL at the time, saying this doesn't meet the standards. And then we went into administration, and the $200,000 I set aside for in LIP got spent on a ridiculous architectural design for a $2.1 million facility that would never be built in Marsden and wasn't fit for purpose. And this sort of enables that same pattern to repeat itself, because when a councillor comes in saying, hey, my community would love 3 small community halls, 100 square metres each, in 3 parks nearby to each other, or even all in the same park using a shared toilet, which is a pretty innovative approach. They'd also love it to be built out of a material that we don't normally build from, a shipping container. This doesn't accommodate that, and the first answer will be that doesn't meet the CIS and that doesn't meet the requirements of the guidelines. And the council's going to have to go into bat to fight and push to get what their community wants, which is just community spaces, which Marsden doesn't have enough of. So what peace of mind can you give councillors that when we approve this, that we're not just going to end up having it used as a tool to say no, and to say no really quickly and early, and then have to start a whole fight to try and get the outcome that the community wants and is affordable?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do appreciate the strategic vision for the next 50 years. The reason why this is a guideline is absolutely not to prevent anything. It's fit for purpose to the community, and that is innovative. I would use a recent example around the Wilbur Street Youth Centre. We don't prescribe within the guidelines how to build the Wilbur Street Youth Centre. So again, depending on, and this is the beauty of planning site-specific, what we wanted to provide to the community, it informs a basic understanding of the form and function of these 10 different facility types that we will build in bulk over time, but it is not prescriptive and does not say we cannot do anything else. So if there's an opportunity to do something that's fit for purpose, and I agree Marsden Park is a particularly constrained site, and it may not lend itself to a typical something found in the guidelines, if you will. So my understanding for the intention is this is why it's a guideline and is not a standard, and it will still enable us to consider fit-for-purpose facilities where appropriate, given site constraint specificity and services.
Thanks, Ben. So essentially, this guideline will be used as a planning tool to understand future needs of land and really ballpark pricing, because it shifts so much, when we're designing, when we're planning for what the needs of the city are into the future. It won't be used to either limit, constrain. Once you actually get to the point of delivering and designing something, this no longer applies once you get to design phase.
Yes, so strategically, if we're planning out what the next, through the network plan, which will be coming to the councillors for consideration in the coming months, we need to understand exactly that point. What land do we need? What size land do we need? What typically GFA do we need? That is also in the current DSS within the planning scheme. You'll have noticed within this document the land sizes and GFAs we've identified differ from the DS in some degree. This document will inform, hopefully, the DSS around those 2 components. And as we understand what an aquatic centre looks like, whether it's a district or a metro library looks like, typically speaking, we'll have a better understanding of how that fits, its functionality, and its typical cost, so we can start to plan the timeliness of infrastructure. But is that not there specifically to inhibit innovation or inhibit fit-for-purpose community facilities? I'd bring back to Councillor Lane's example around the Logan Central Community Centre. If we've got a particular size facility there, and at a point in time for the future, if it needs to be replaced and the community has an asset, We're not going to take away an asset and then provide necessarily an inferior asset for the community if we've already had an existing asset. So, and this guideline does not inhibit that.
Thank you. On that basis, I'm happy to support it.
Councillor Stemp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of comments. Obviously, with community facilities, we try and encourage as many people to use them as possible in terms of clubs. For example, Logan Basketball, there's probably 4 or 5 different sporting groups that use that. So I suppose in terms of storage and so forth, when I was just reading through guidelines, I think it's really important that we ensure we've got sufficient storage, especially and secured storage for various groups. I've sort of, even in smaller community groups, I think there's a lack of that, and there's nothing worse than having to keep taking all your stuff away and bringing it all back. If there's options for that, I think that's something we could definitely improve for the future. And probably the other one that just sort of stood out to me was, again, we're trying to push active transport, which again, I think more bike racks, I think especially at places, sporting facilities, and at facilities where we've got children and people going. I think we need to maybe, I think there might have been 3 on one of them I saw, but if we can try and encourage, in my mind, more of that as a guideline, I think that's important if we're trying to promote active transport. So thank you.
Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Chair. Just wondering, looking at some of these plans, they are quite large facilities, hey? Like page 99 and page 89 have got rather large facilities. One's a pool and one's a, looks like it's a 6-court sort of facility. So they're huge. That is exciting, I guess, but are we ever going to build anything like that in the city? Because, yeah, I'd hate to see how much that costs now, let alone in 10 years or so.
Yeah, through the Chair, thank you, Councillor Fraser, for the question. Yes, the network plan, or the integrated network plan that will be coming to Council in the coming months, will identify, again, the types of facilities we're going to need. The facilities that you touched on would be metro-level facilities servicing the entire city. But yes, we've certainly got a growing city, and if we touch on, say, indoor sports courts, we're not at demand currently, and with the rate of growth and the popularity of indoor sports, we'll be short of courts very, very quickly. And the example I would use in regards to the size of these facilities, if we look at, Councillor Stemp just touched on the Canoobia Indoor Sports Centre, and it's a 4-court stadium, and it's at its maximum utilisation rate, and the community organisations within that facility now can't grow any further. So it's a consideration of whether we do build lots of micro-type facilities, or we look at more precincts in that macro-level facility where we can co-locate numerous groups and accommodate growth. But considering the population projections, I am confident we are going to need a good combination of precinct-level facilities, but also those smaller facilities to accommodate all of those opportunities for the community. But yes, those big facilities are costly, and yes, and hence we need to do, to the Mayor's point, a lot of considered planning for the future of what needs to be delivered and when and how we are going to afford these items for the community.
Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm not putting my camera on this morning. Ben, just before, I couldn't quite hear it. What were you saying about the PDA areas? Are these plans not for the PDA areas? Are they totally separate?
So earlier in the presentation around strategic fit, I was just touching on where these guidelines fit within the framework of documents we have, i.e. the planning scheme, the LGIP and the CIS. So in the CIS, we've identified infrastructure to service the city for the next 20 years, and that covers all of the city. Yes, and these guidelines will inform those facilities. So in the CIS, we've identified facilities in the priority development area.
So with that, sorry, I do have quite a few questions, but to understand that more, so none of this has been used then in developing the Flagstone Community Centre. Is that why the design is what it is at the moment?
Yeah, so my understanding... Oh, yep, no more.
Through the Chair, Councillor Wilcox, yes, this is informing the Flagstone Community Centre. These are used across all of the facilities in the CIS. So regardless of where the facility is, whether it's in a PDA or it's in Central Logan or it's down in Beenleigh, or it's out somewhere else, this informs all of them.
All right. I posed a question to Ben yesterday, and I was going to raise this in GB, but I may as well just sort of do it now because it actually sort of falls into this. So the Flagstone Community Centre, you said to me on email that the designs have been completed and that sort of thing. And yes, I've been consulted, but I don't know what those final designs are. I did have a meeting last month, I think it was, but I didn't know they were the final designs. I've had a bit to say, but I don't think anything that I've said actually has been integrated into the plans because the plans I liked were 2 plans ago and then it's been flipped
Councillor
again.
Wilcox,
So the Flagstone Community Centre's probably had about 4
Councillor
different
Wilcox.
iterations of plans,
Nah.
but I don't think
Councillor Wilcox.
my thoughts have gone in there.
Sorry, Councillor Wilcox, I've got a point of order.
Okay.
Sorry, yes.
Mayor Raven, could you please,
So,
the matter of your point of order?
well, all of that is valid that Councillor Wilcox is raising. It's not relevant to this report. So if she could raise it separately or directly with the manager, that would be amazing.
For me, it kind of does fit in because we're talking about the design plans Noelle has just said, and I wasn't going to raise it here, but
Okay,
it kind of, for me, fits into here.
Councillor Raven has raised a point of order. I'm going to...
I can leave it till GB, and I can just ask the rest of my questions. It's fine.
Yes, please, and then we can close that matter. Thank you. Did you have further questions?
Yes, I have other questions.
Yep. Okay. Please continue with your other questions.
So, how did we come up with the sizes for each of the buildings and that sort of thing? So you've got fairly quickly in the report a lot of sizes, GFAs, and that sort of thing. So how did we come up with all of those?
Through the Chair, Councillor Wilcox, we have a DSS, which is the Desired Standard of Service. Those building sizes where they have been amended and they come through, as we discussed earlier, has been based on strong background research upon best exemplars across the state and Australia, but also in conjunction with discussions to subject matter experts who activate and run these centres. So it's to determine, so for a community centre, the Neighbourhood Centres Queensland Peak organisation was consulted. For our libraries, we worked really strongly with our library crew. For the art galleries, we worked very strongly with consulted with them of what do we have now, where is it deficit, what should be included in the future. And it's not only to meet the need now, but it's to future-proof. And in some of these cases, the sizes are bigger, but that's because at the moment the size and format of the facilities limit what we can do, and they restrict how we could get the best value out of them, or they limit the collection size we could do. We can't bring in the best of and brightest of things because we don't meet the minimum standards that other organisations would require from us. So that's what these guidelines have done, is said, okay, if you were to build a great centre, this is what this is. In taking that on board, all of these, as we have said, is when it comes down to the project coming on board, it's talking about how does that site look? How is it going to be operated? What's the demographic of the group that it will be using it? And how do we cater this to make sure it fits the community best?
Okay, so if you're saying we want to build a great centre, we want to build best value out of each facility, why are we not co-locating the facilities? If developers are handing us over land and they're handing over multiple pieces of land, why are we not asking, for me, I would prefer a larger block where you can actually have better co-located facility that has a library, an aquatic centre, a pool, it has a community facility in it as well. Why are we not co-locating them? Because then you can actually get more bang for your buck. I think you'd probably get more use from the community from them because they're actually going to one place and they can actually go, okay, I've got to go to the library, I need to do my swimming lessons, and then I need to, do something else. I don't understand why we've got all these separate facilities, yet you go to Pimpama, you go to Coomera, it's all co-located in one spot. They work.
Through the Chair, absolutely agree with you, Councillor Wilcox, and that is one of the central themes of the Community Infrastructure Strategy. Within the strategy and will be rolled out across Logan are co-located facilities. It is also a central point that has led to the development of the Integrated Lifestyle Infrastructure Network Plan that will be brought to you in the coming months. We do have co-located facilities that are being rolled out. We do actively seek these opportunities as well. So when you're looking at a leisure centre, that is a co-located opportunity of a pool and an indoor centre. There are also other ones that we have spoken about previously in this committee, like the one at Springwood, and at future ones that are coming to Park Ridge Town Centre, where it has a library, a community centre, performing arts and art spaces. These are actively being progressed. We agree land is a precious resource. It's really hard to get. Well-located land is even harder to get, and that's why we are absolutely pursuing this and will do so in every way possible.
I think that might be what's lacking out of this, because out of this, it all looks like separate facilities. For me, I'm not reading in here that any of this is co-located. I think that each community is different and each division is totally different, and the use of the facilities that they're designed for is totally different. And I think you're trying to put a cookie cutter approach here that won't work. So something that works in Division 2 in Councillor Lane's area won't work in Division 11 for my residents. I'm worried that your design and function of the community centre, you're trying to make it universal. And I understand that, you can shift things around and that sort of thing. But for me, this is locking us in. And I know it says guidelines, but reading the report, it doesn't feel like it's a guideline. It feels like this is the design. You can shift your rooms around here and there, but it doesn't work. That's what I feel. I don't feel that that you're incorporating a commercial space for areas that people can hire for events. They seem very small, and the smaller the type of areas, the less usage you're going to get if you can't open it up. Like I only have one really large facility in my area, and it's 40 years old, and people can't book in there, and people are trying to find another space to book, and there's just nothing out there. I think libraries, I think we need to relook at this. I like libraries being attached to shopping centres because they have a larger structure. They allow for longer opening hours, even, service centres and stuff like that. You can get better usage out of the council facilities. We need to offer flexibility, and I don't feel that there's flexibility in these designs to fully utilise the services that we're trying to offer to our communities, being so different between division to division.
Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. Okay, Councillor Bradley.
Thank you. I really wish these designs were in place when Underwood Park Community Facility was being designed during administration, because it definitely is not fit for purpose and it is not to the standards that are mentioned within this document. However, that wasn't why I put my hand up. Definitely no shipping containers in Division 1, please. However, I am with the Mayor on this. No point of order, thank you. I am with the Mayor in terms of, like, for example, the Pre-Star Scouts. Money was put aside last term for designing of a new facility there, which turned out to be like $1 million to create a new facility. And it's like, that is so unrealistic. So somehow there needs to be an element of flexibility. That's all I really wanted to say.
Councillor Lane.
Thanks for giving me one last chop, and it's not a chop actually, it's a question. So I note with some of the plans, you've got these wonderful words. It's a 3-letter word, not a 4-letter word one, and it says gym. Do we have any profitable gyms or ones that break even in the city, and why would we include them if we don't?
Hi, Councillor Lane, through the chair. Gyms are really attractive item to attract commercial operators if we have a leisure centre. So where we have a gym that could be incorporated as part of an active leisure centre, it opens up opportunities for the operations of it. We at Council do not seek to duplicate nor undercut our wonderful businesses working across Logan, so therefore we do it. Gyms are put in because when we are speaking to successful centres and successful operators and state sporting organisations, if you want great athletes and excellence in sports, you need to have those cross-training opportunities so people can work out a gym, do the swim training, do the athletics training, etc. It's put in as a discussion starter. You'll notice that quite often they're considered as non-essential in those items, and they can come or go. So they are definitely something that's put on the table. You see how the market works, etc.
So thank you very much, but that wasn't my question. My question was, do we have any profitable ones or ones that break even in the city? And the floor space that these three-letter words are putting in there, because I don't visit them at all, is that it's 50 metres long. It's huge. The impost economically and to build it is significant. So we do have those three-letter words operating privately, and they're in our parks and they're in different places. I disagree that someone's going to jump out of the pool and then pay $5 to go in and use the gym in there, and if they do, well, good for them, but there's probably one down the road. Just out of curiosity, that's why I asked the question. You've answered the question. I'm not satisfied with the answer, but you've answered it nonetheless, so thank you.
Okay, councillors, we have a motion on the board to table the presentation. Can I have a mover for that? Councillor Lane, supported by Councillor Murphy. Can I have a show of hands in support of tabling the motion? That's been carried unanimously.
I'm in favour of that one.
Okay, so we have a recommendation. No. That's tabling so that it's public. Okay. Sorry, Mr. Ben-O'Brien, just before we end discussions, I'd just like to say my piece on this. My background, I have a lot of experience in real estate, and in my experience, I always found that homes that were built off the plan resold a lot easier than homes that were custom built and just built ad hoc by the owner. They were usually built at a lower expense as well. So the cost of the actual building process was a lot less because it was the designers and the builders knew what they were doing. They knew how to build it. And then after the person had lived in that property, they were resold a lot quicker than homes that were purposefully built. And the reason is, when you buy a home off the plan, it's built for everyone. It's almost future-proof for use by other people long into the future. And I believe that this guideline is trying to set part of that sentiment, that we want to build facilities that can be used again and again by different organisations well into the future. And we want to do them quicker. We want to do them cheaper. A lot of the times I hear councillors saying, give me the Aldi version of this. Well, we can easily provide an Aldi version if we have a plan already in place as to how to do it. The other thing it's doing is it's setting community expectation. So this is going to be a public document. So people can actually go on and check what a facility will look like perhaps into the future if, perhaps they wanted that. Also, understanding, what would be required to have such a facility in a certain area. So it's not only that, it's setting expectation, and that's so important is what we do, is that we let our residents know what is possible in certain areas and what is not. So I do support this document as well. That being said, I would like to move the motion for this. Okay, that is up on the board. Can I have a seconder? That is seconded by Councillor Murphy. Can I have a show of hands of councillors in support? Okay, that has been moved by everyone except for Councillor Wilcox. Councillor Wilcox, how do you vote?
Against.
Okay, so that is, let's do the counts. It's carried. Okay, that's carried, definitely. Okay, well done. All right. Okay, so do we have any reports or late reports? No? Okay, we're moving on to general business. So does any councillors have any general business for the sports and community infrastructure, Mr. Ben O'Brien? Councillor Lane.
I do as well.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Through you. So I've got two items. The first is the pool down at Gould Adams. Thank you so much for the update on the improvements to the pool and the repairs. Having those photographs, I'll share them on social media today and with residents whose email addresses I have who've queried about it. They love their local pool, as small as it is. They love it and they want to be back in it as soon as possible. And while we're on the subject of pools, roughly 5 days ago, there was an announcement by the Queensland Government, and it said an adventure playground at Victoria Park, a new Redcliffe Suttons Beach Pavilion, a new Beanley Aquatic Centre, and a coastal boardwalk at Alexandra Headland. Just a few of the community projects we locked in for funding today. Was that how did that come about? Did we put in a proposal to the state government for that type of funding, and was it ratified by council in any way, shape or form?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Lane, and appreciate the comments around the Gould Adams Park. The grant funding opportunity that you're referring to is, my understanding, is the South East Queensland Livability Fund. So yes, that did come through council. Council endorsed to make submissions for the Waterford West District Park and the Beanley Aquatic Centre. So my understanding is that both projects have been successful. Specifically, the Beanley Aquatic Centre was successful, being awarded, I think, $9.7 million towards the project.
To do what?
To deliver the project.
Is it the original pool that they're putting towards, or is there a new pool? Is it what is it? I think the way that it was phrased, one was Courier Mail behind the wall, and the other one was just really vague. So I think, if we're going to share some good news, let's share it all.
Through the chair, hi Councillor Lane. This is, and I know that Councillor Murphy is itching to answer this one. This is the Beanley Aquatic Centre. So this is the South East Queensland Livability Funding, and it did go through council last year. This is to deliver a brand new 50-metre heated pool. All of the new community buildings there, it's now accessible. It will be amazing. It's a big project, and it leveraged council's funding to be able to deliver a very future-focused aquatic facility for Beanley.
Sorry, so again, we funded a pool, a new facility. Is this an additional pool, an additional heated pool that's been approved, or is it they're helping us pay for the existing?
They're helping us pay for the existing project.
Much.
Councillor Murphy, did you want to add to that? I can see you biting at the bit.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's a massive investment in our city. It's the second 50-metre pool that we will have. Thankfully, we're going from feet, yards and inches of 33.33 metres, which I believe is 100 yards, to actually 50 metres heated outdoor pool. This is an extension at stage 2. It's a $23 million investment into our city, and it is part of a precinct like Councillor Wilcox was talking about before. Not only do we have the pools, we have the tennis, we have the club, we have PCYC, the gym over the road, etc., etc. So the team have done an amazing job. It's the second part of that precinct. I know my schools in the area, there's 10 of them that are looking forward to actually having a pool that is competition ready, and looking forward to the future, especially with the Olympics coming. Hopefully we'll have another Molly Kellyanne and getting out there and getting us gold. So thank you very much.
We have Councillor Wilcox to speak next.
Thank you. Thank you. Ben, just wanting an update for Middle Green, the roof and the toilets, please.
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Wilcox. I wish to provide the following update for the projects you've asked for. So the Middle Green roof replacement, that's been awarded. The works have been awarded, and the works are to commence after the ECA holiday, which is the 13th of August next week. works are expected to be completed mid-September this year. For the middle green, for the middle green amenities, we've received the quotes, so we went out to request quotes for that. We've received them, and we're currently reviewing them. Slightly needs a bit more review and needs value engineering to find some cost savings. So we're currently doing that, but we're near the end of the evaluation, and we could award it in the next fortnight. The works for the middle green amenities. Is there another project?
So you're going to award the toilets in the next fortnight?
Yes, that's the aim.
Okay. If I can get an updated plan of that one, that would be great when you've got it done. And then just talking about the Flagstone Community Centre, if I can get an update on that one, please.
Yes, for Flagstone Community Centre, so we've lodged a material change of use application to EDQ as part of the process for the approval. So we've lodged that in July, and it's currently being assessed by them. We're helping them assess it quicker so that we can get it quicker. The aim is to receive, the target that they gave us is to receive that at the end of August, the approval. On the design phase of Flagstone Community Centre, so developed design has been finished. We're doing now the tender drawings and
Okay, so if I can get a set of those updated plans, because I did give feedback on the last one, I've given feedback the whole time.
Yeah.
And I know that it's been heard, but the design that I liked, and I said, you know, I could go, yep, I can envisage that. It wasn't used, and then it got flipped again. So we're on about our fourth iteration, as I said before. And personally, I didn't like the last one. I gave my feedback on it, so I would like to see what design plans have gone out to see whether or not my feedback was actually integrated as the local councillor, because as Councillor Raven said, you guys don't live in the community. We do. We live and breathe it. And I wanted to see that this was designed fit for purpose for the community use that it needs.
Through the chair, Councillor Wilcox, apologies we didn't loop back to you. We have taken on board your feedback, and we'll arrange a meeting to take you through that as soon as possible.
Just send me through the plans. I don't need a meeting. Just send through the plans. Thanks.
Okay.
Councillor Bradley.
Thank you. Through the chair. Mr. O'Brien, I want to ask you a question, please. I know we used to have a coach at Logan North Aquatic Fitness Facility, whatever we call it now. And obviously we've got the Olympics on at the moment, and there was an amazing coach that has been spruiked about. I'm just curious if we have a coach still at Logan North or not.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Bradley. I, if possible, like to take that offline, because I might liaise with the Venues and Events Manager, Brad Page. He may be have more information on that he could share with you outside of this meeting.
Okay. Because I think that's a good selling point for our city. Just saying.
Okay, if there's no further general business items from the councillors, I believe our Sports and Community Infrastructure Manager, Mr. Ben O'Brien, has some general business himself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just taking a moment to acknowledge one of our staff members in the sporting theme of this committee meeting and the Olympics that are going on at the moment, and Australia's outstanding performance in that Olympics. Adam Page, our Sports and Recreation Coordinator, many that you know, recently represented Australia in the Touch Football World Cup in Nottingham, UK. He came back about a week and a half ago with the flu from that. This marked his debut on the international touch football stage, where he competed in the men's 45 category. The Australian team, the Emus, dominated the tournament and they won gold. So we're all very proud of his achievements. And I just wanted to share that because we obviously live and breathe the content with which we deliver, and we're very, very proud. So thank you for the moment.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Just as a closing remark before I close off the meeting, I'd like to say I don't really like to hear when councillors say we live in the community, you don't. because many of council staff does live in the community, and at the end of the day, we're all in this together. If I have to quote someone, we're all in this together. So let's not have that type of mindset. When you work in a community, you do kind of live in a community. You spend most of your life in the area that you work. So in a way, you do live here. So thank you for the work that you do. I'd like to close off the meeting. I declare the City Lifestyle meeting at the date of the 7th of August concluded at 11:37. Thank you.